Universal Casualty, Super Q,
los Miami Dolphins y tú, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Son los Dolphins, nuestros Miami Dolphins, el team número 1 en toda la nación. Y son ellos orgullo de Miami y de todos los latinos en la capital del sol. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Este año no me hablen de los Redskins, no me hablen de los Chargers, ni de los Dallas Cowboys, porque los Dolphins son número 1 y lo demostrarán al llegar al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Nuestra línea está mejor que nunca y nuestra defensiva fue siempre la mejor. Y es por eso que yo no tengo duda que los Miami Dolphins ganarán el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl.
Universal Casualty
Y Super Q, los primeros. Bueno, caballeros, todo el mundo que cante con nosotros. Dame una D, dame una O, dame una L, dame una P, una H, una I, una N, una S. ¿Qué es lo que tenemos? Miami Dolphins. Me voy para el Super Bowl. 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 Me voy para el Super Bowl.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
There's a team Dolphin fans. Football is mighty rough. Winning gets awful tough. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins.
Hello, 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 Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphin Show, sponsored by BetUS, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today is my brother from the exact same mother. I guess he's with me every day. Screwed up the intro. Tells you what a trip to Florida will do. But with me today and every day, my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people. See, that's what the South Florida heat does to you. That's why we need to play some home games and get back in the win column.
Seriously, I spend a couple of days in South Florida. We do one show together in the same room, and everything is haywire. And now, just like everybody else on the Dolphins, I'm all banged up. Everything is a mess. Oh my goodness, it's a rough time. So by now, you all are aware the Dolphins lost 40-17 to the Jets this weekend. I don't believe that the game was as unbalanced as that score would indicate, but a tough day for the Miami Dolphins as they lose 40-17 on the road, fall to 3-2. But, you know, and we're going to get into the whole game. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things. Obviously, the injury situation is the biggest takeaway from that game, and we've got a lot to talk about. But first and foremost, if you haven't done so already, make sure you're following us on Twitter. I'm at Amplified to Rock. He is at Aaron the Brain. That's at Aaron the Brain. The show is at Same Old Dolphins. You can download, rate, review, and subscribe to the Same Old Dolphin Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, everywhere that you get your podcasts. We appreciate you leaving us a 5-star rating and a positive review. Thank you to everybody who has taken the time to do that. And make sure that you're also visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. It's your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins, and make sure that you are subscribed to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel so you don't miss a live episode of the Same Old Dolphin Show or any of the other fine programming that we've got coming your way on that channel throughout the regular season. Whether you watch it live or you watch it later on demand, we appreciate you subscribing to the channel. And of course, smash that like button, everybody. Go ahead, smash it right now if you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate it very much. And of course, a shout out to everybody watching on the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page. All right. So the Dolphins, they lost 40-17 to the Jets. And, you know, the biggest thing coming into this game was the quarterback situation. We got a little bit of resolution, I guess, if you want to call it that, on the investigation into the Dolphins' handling of Tua Tagovailoa. And it was basically kind of what we sort of speculated on this very show it was going to be. The two sides agreed that they agreed in terms of the text of the statement that they put out that all the protocols were followed and there was no malfeasance or wrongdoing on any side. But they agreed that what happened was not the goal of the protocols or whatever it was. But so ultimately that was the end of that. But they were installing these new protocols that basically said that anytime a player displayed ataxia, which is a neurologically caused imbalance or stumbling or slurring of speech, that anytime that is observed by anybody at any time, a player is removed from the game and immediately placed in the concussion protocol, regardless of whether or not they pass any other tests. Okay? That was the rule that was implemented, and that is now in place. What is key about this the implementation of this new protocol at this point, Brain, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, is that as of now, as of the time that we are going live here Monday evening, 8:30 p.m. East Coast time, there is zero oversight over this spotter. This person who is the spotter who is sitting somewhere in the stadium and is charged with making the determination as to whether or not this player is displaying ataxia. There is zero oversight. That person makes that decision, and that is the end of it. The decision is made, the player is placed in the concussion protocol, and that's it. There is no follow-up. There is no need for the spotter to prove what they saw or to show everybody what they saw. At the end of the day, as soon as that spotter at this point in time makes that decision that they believe that that player has displayed ataxia, the player is removed from the game, and that's it. And that person, this mysterious individual, has nobody to answer to. As a result, first offensive play of the game for the Miami Dolphins, Teddy Bridgewater drops back to pass. There is a cornerback blitz. He's leveled. Teddy Bridgewater is leveled, takes a hard hit, goes down to the ground, gets up, apparently displays no formal, no signs of ataxia in any of the film that I've seen. And I was watching the game live, and I've seen the video that has been released out later, and I've seen all of this footage, and I have not yet seen any evidence that Teddy Bridgewater displayed at any time any kind of sign of ataxia. None. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that I've seen all available video, okay? And listen, I know everybody's retweeting that video that was sent out by WSVN in South Florida, that video that very clearly has a cut in the middle of it. That is not the best, strongest piece of evidence that a lot of people are telling you that it is. It's not that great. It's got a big edit in the middle of it, but I understand the point, okay? The point is, there seems to be no indication that there was anything wrong with this guy. And if I want to put on my tinfoil hat for a second, which I guess I'm doing at this point, it seems to me that somebody made the decision that they were going to wait for the right moment to jump in there and say, this player from the Miami Dolphins needs to come out. Because the Miami Dolphins, being in the position that they're in, right, supposedly, according to some people, mishandling the Tua situation, even though it was decided upon by both the NFL and the NFLPA that the protocol was followed, the Dolphins are still in the wrong. So here's an opportunity for us to push them just a little bit. Teddy Bridgewater is removed from the game after one offensive snap, and the Dolphins play the rest of the game against the New York Jets with their third string, 7th round rookie quarterback, Skylar Thompson. And so this just opens the door to a whole lot of questions, right? And I don't want to get into the whole conspiracy theory aspect of it because, we could go on all day and that's pointless. And because as Mike McDaniel sort of said in his press conference this afternoon, he said, look, I don't want to talk. He really didn't want to talk about, he wasn't going to send a letter to the NFL to file a grievance. He's not going to do anything like that because at the end of the day, he's the head coach. He's not going to worry about something that has already happened and that there's nothing that they can do anything about at this point. At this point, all the team can do is take these new given circumstances that they have and move forward. We're going to talk about how they're going to do that here. But anyway, I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed about that, Brain. And I think that makes me, you know what it does, Brain? You know what it makes me want to do?
What's that?
Makes me want to check my pulse.
Let me check your pulse if you're not fired up.
That's right, Miami Dolphins fans. It is time once again for a Miami Dolphins pulse check, when this is where we talk about how we are feeling about the Miami Dolphins in this moment in time. And we ask for you to tell us how you are feeling. So if you're watching live, if you haven't done so yet, put one word in the comments, whether you're watching on Facebook, watching on YouTube, put wherever you're watching, put one comment below to let us know how you are feeling in one word about the Miami Dolphins in this moment. And Brain, I'm going to tell you how I'm feeling right now.
Oh, go lay it on us.
I'm telling you, I'm feeling frustrated. I'm frustrated because we have seen little bits and little glimpses of what this team can do. We saw this team in hard-nosed, tough battles with the Baltimore Ravens and Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, who are arguably the best team in the NFL right now, right? In an NFL that is filled with parity, right now the Buffalo Bills feel like the team that is rising to the top of the stack, right? And the Dolphins beat them, right? We've seen what this team can do. But now, because of the hit that Tua Tagovailoa took in the game against the Bengals, which was at the time a clean hit, I'm sure Atlanta Falcons fans wonder why that was a clean hit and the hit that their guy put on Tom Brady on Sunday wasn't a clean hit, that's neither here nor there.
He doesn't throw the flags.
So, yeah, right. So, because of that hit, we lost QB1, who was apparently rising to the level where we all wanted him to truly be. We've lost him, and who knows when we're going to get him back. Based on the press conference today, does not sound like it's going to be necessarily soon. And now, because of this situation with Teddy Bridgewater in the Jets game, we go that entire game without Teddy. And at that point, of course, you got to throw the entire game plan out the window because you spent a week and a half preparing for Teddy Bridgewater to be your quarterback. And I don't think Skylar Thompson spent any time at all preparing to start that game. And, at that, you wouldn't have expected him to be in that mindset. So everything goes out the window at that point. On top of that, you now have the Teron Armstead injury. You've already got the Austin Jackson injury when it sounded like he was turning a corner a little bit for this team. So you've got those two guys. You got Byron Jones opting to get a surgery on his Achilles very late in the spring. So that has caused him to miss the first 5 games of the season and probably at least going to miss one more, probably more than that. Now Xavier Howard is dealing with 2 groin injuries. So you've got both of your cornerbacks, your star top 8 salaried NFL cornerbacks, both on the shelf. You now have Tyreek Hill dealing with an injury. You have Jalen Waddle dealing with injuries. We've got the injury bug has bit the Dolphins and bit them hard. So we have not seen in the last 2 weeks, and we can't see now, probably coming into this week, we cannot see this team playing at the level that we would like to see them playing at full strength. And I know it's the NFL. Nobody's ever at full strength. Regardless, all of that said, how I would describe how I am feeling about the Miami Dolphins right now, I am feeling frustrated because all of the things that are going on right now are things that are out of our control. It's not like we're losing games because we're making bonehead plays. I mean, we're missing a lot of tackles, and there are some questions about defense, which we'll get into. But I'm frustrated because these injuries and things like that, it's the random stuff that they always say that if you win the Super Bowl, if you go to the Super Bowl and you win the Super Bowl, there's luck involved. And that's absolutely true. And right now, the Dolphins just cannot catch a break when it comes to that kind of luck. So, Brain, I'm feeling frustrated. What about you?
I hear it in your voice. And it's understandable because look, I just drank the Kool-Aid. That could be a word. Regretful that I drank the Kool-Aid because
is that your word? Should I put
no,
it in
that's
the box?
not. It's not my word, but it could be. But that just speaks to your frustration is that we all, even the people that were not ready to wrap our arms around this team going into the season and ready to anoint them, when they won that game against Buffalo after beating Baltimore the week before and looking at the schedule, we all collectively as a fan base seemed to finally agree this team looks like a playoff team, and this team looks like it's actually moving in the right direction. And you lose 2 games back to back, and to lose to your arch rivals, the Jets, who I think most people would look at and not really believe are very good.
I hate the
in
Jets.
in spite of the fact that they're making strides and they're clearly moving in the right direction, that they're still at least a year, if not 2 or 3 years away from being a legitimate playoff team. And you just got beat by them by 3 touchdowns. So I'm concerned now, and that's my word, concerned. I'm not panicked because I think overall, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season that we would be 3-2 at this point, I would absolutely take it. I don't know a single Dolphins fan that wouldn't have been elated looking at our schedule and saying the Dolphins are 3-2. That said, the way that we've got here, at the very least, you have to raise an eyebrow. You have to understand that, with these injuries cropping up, there might not be an end in sight. The fact that, we don't know how long X is going to be out for. He's got multiple groin injuries, an injury on each side. We don't know about Tua. This stupid new protocol now, even though Teddy Bridgewater had no apparent signs. Forget about having to be taken out of the game and not being able to return, but showed no apparent signs of any kind of concussion and now cannot practice until Thursday. Like that, we're just making shit up as we go along. Really, is what the NFL is doing. So look, it's at the very least, it's concerning because you look at what this team has looked like the last 2 games without these key players. And like Teron Armstead, that toe thing, that's been an issue apparently all year. And now he's aggravated it and he didn't even fly home with the team. That's not good.
Well, apparently he had an appointment with a specialist that had been scheduled before the game. So don't read into that. I mean, the concerning thing is that he played 8 snaps.
Yeah. Well, he played 8 snaps and then happened to have this, this appointment with a specialist. That means there's concern about it. Yeah, sure. And it obviously got worse if he only played 8 snaps in a game where we're coming off of a loss and it was a rivalry game and clearly it was an important game for the team. So is this thing going to turn around? Like, is this defense there were questions coming into the season about it? And granted, no X, no Byron Jones, that obviously impacts things. But the Dolphins defense is, 25th in the league right now? It's one thing to give up points and give up a ton of yards to Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. It's a completely other thing to give up a bunch of yards to Zach Wilson and the New York Jets with a makeshift offensive line. That's concerning. So I am concerned. I'm not panicked because I think in the grand scheme of things, if the Dolphins find a way to win next week, we're all going to be feeling really, really good about this season right now. So I'm not ready to hit the panic button, but an eyebrow is raised and I'm concerned.
Yeah. And I certainly understand that. I was looking at some of the other responses that we can see. The 305 Pancake says feeling hurt. At the Navarone going, their one word is Greer. Goofy's 32 says challenging. J-Zone. Colmane Juan says uncertain. 20 Gone says sabotaged. Nick Vipperman says bummed. Nick Dorsey says frustrated. BLT, Bill from Boynton, says deflated, cheated, concerned, cursed. Oh, number 1 Canes fan is feeling cursed. Yeah, it's somebody says bullish, which is interesting. Robbed, steady. So it's interesting. A lot of people are feeling a little low right now. As I'm just taking a quick scroll over how people deja vu, which I think is technically one word. Discouraged, patient. I like that. A little bit more optimistic there. A lot of concerned, earmarked, disappointed, pain, poop. Yeah, it's rough over there.
Here's the thing. Like, and I get it. It's whenever you lose 2 games in the NFL in a row, like it feels like you've lost like 4 games in a row.
Sure.
And to have those concerning things that you don't necessarily have an answer to because you feel like you're just waiting to get healthy. I think, it definitely makes things a lot more negative than just looking at the big picture and saying that you're 3-2. But I think I want to do like a little thought experiment, if you will. And hopefully this doesn't blow up in my face because this wasn't like, rehearsed or anything. So if you're not on the same page as me, I'm going to end up with egg on my face at the end of this.
Okay, so we're doing a little thought experiment here. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, we're going to do a little thought experiment.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you
the pulse check segment here. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'm going to give you 5 teams.
Okay.
and I want you to rank them best to worst. And
You want me to rank these 5 teams best to worst?
Yes.
Okay, and you want me to write these down and then share the answer with you?
Yeah, well, write them down. Don't share them just yet.
Okay, I will.
Right.
I'm gonna put up what I'm doing here is I because I think I don't have a pen and paper handy. I'm just gonna type it into a banner here, and then I will share my answer on the screen when you give me the signal.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Give me the teams.
The Miami Dolphins,
Dolphins. Okay.
the Buffalo Bills,
Bills.
the Baltimore Ravens,
Uh-huh.
the Cincinnati Bengals,
Okay.
and the New York Jets.
You want me to rank those 5?
I want you to rank those 5 teams.
Okay. So I would go.
And play along at home because I'm curious. I think I've got a beat on this.
Okay. We'll see. Everybody rank your 5 teams. So it's
I'm not looking at the comments, by the way. Don't look at the comments. I don't know if anybody's typing anything in the comments, but
okay. I've got my answer.
okay. And so
I've got my answer typed.
All right. So don't reveal it until I go through it.
Okay.
But I'm willing to bet.
And I didn't think a whole lot about this, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I don't
Because
think you need
obviously
to. I
this
think
is it's an audio medium.
I think for the most part, this is pretty cut and dry. That number 1 is the Buffalo Bills. Number 2 is the Baltimore Ravens. There is probably a big debate in your head about who's better between the Dolphins and the Cincinnati Bengals. And I won't fault you for whoever you put 3rd or 4th in that situation. And that the Jets are clearly 5th. So go ahead, reveal it.
Well, tell me, wait, where did you think I would come down in the argument between 3 and 4?
Oh, I would say that you'd probably pick the Dolphins better than over the Bengals. But it's debatable. I think it could be a tie. There, boom.
Bills. So
Ravens.
for those, yeah, I said Bills 1, Ravens 2, Dolphins 3, Bengals 4, Jets 5. That's what I wrote. That's my ranking.
Okay.
I'm going to look at the comments now and see if anybody. Let's see. Here we go. Here's somebody who did Bills, Ravens, Bengals, Fins, Jets. Here's somebody that did Bills, Ravens, Dolphins, Bengals, Jets. And here's somebody that did Bills, Bengals, Ravens, Fins, Jets.
Well, I don't know how they think that the Bengals
Hey,
are better than
it's you. This is
but
a
okay,
subjective exercise. But go ahead.
Okay. Point is, it's very interesting that you have the Dolphins ranked behind both Buffalo and Baltimore. And I'll go one step further. You actually have the Dolphins ranked ahead of the Bengals, in spite of the fact that the Dolphins lost to the Bills and beat the Bills and the Ravens and actually lost to the Bengals, and that the team in 5th place, the New York Jets, the Dolphins just lost to by 3 touchdowns. The point is, one game does not determine where you stand in the hierarchy of the league. Context matters. The Dolphins beat the Bills and they beat the Ravens in games that, if you played those 10 times, the Dolphins probably lose 8 or 9 of the 10 in either situation. The Dolphins went into this game against the Jets, and everything was already stacked against them. And things got a lot worse. And we're not even talking about the egregious intentional grounding call on that play by Teddy Bridgewater, but the fact that for the second game in a row, the Dolphins had to play the majority of the game with a quarterback that did not have first team reps all week in practice. Like, all of those things, the X injury. And that's not to say that like they're excuses, but frankly, they are excuses. They're reasons. At the end of the day, context matters. And that was the point of the thought experiment.
No, and I agree with you. And I think that's why, at the end of the day, I don't walk out of that game feeling upset about the game. You know, I would think 9 times out of 10, if the Dolphins went into a game and lost 40-17, I'm walking out feeling very upset. But again, there are things about that game that are upsetting. But even the thing about the game that upset me the most, which was the defense, you can take a step back from and go, I think there is somewhat of an explanation here that you're missing the 2 biggest pieces. You're missing those 2 important cornerbacks. And without those cornerbacks, the Dolphins are able, I mean, if those cornerbacks are there, the Dolphins are playing a bit more man coverage. They're blitzing a lot more. A great piece by Barry Jackson in the Miami Herald that he wrote about the Dolphins' defensive statistics. And he talks about how the Dolphins are blitzing a lot less this season. And one of the reasons I would imagine that they're blitzing a lot less is that they've only got one of their 2 premier cornerbacks. And even now, and even in the Cincinnati game, he was not at 100%. If he returns, he's not going to be at 100%. So I think that is, I think that's all stuff to take away. And I think it's reasons why, not necessarily that there are reasons for optimism, although I think there are some, but I think it's reasons why you don't need to be so upset about where the Dolphins are in this moment following this loss to the Jets, which we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail. But first, I need to talk to you about a sponsor. And folks, football is back, baby. And our new sponsor, True Classic, wants you to look and feel your best, even after a couple of brewskis or going full force on your fantasy football draft, although the draft was several weeks ago. So even maybe it's the fantasy football waiver wire, whatever it is. Sure, it's football season, but it's also butt to couch season. Luckily, True Classic has the absolute best fitting clothing a man can buy. Snug in the arms and chest with a little extra space in the torso. Their t-shirts are designed to keep you cozy and highlight your best assets no matter what you're up to. So if your special someone is upset that you're watching football all day, hey, at least you can look good doing it. True Classic has already helped over 2 million men find the perfect fit at an affordable price, and our listeners get access to the best deal they offer for a limited time only. Get 25% off with the promo code Dolphins Talk at trueclassic.com. Almost all men's t-shirts are designed to look good on skinny models with 6-packs, but most of us aren't packing anything but a few beers. Fellas, you're wearing the wrong clothes. True Classics tees taper off towards the bottom, but they fit tighter around the chest and shoulders. I got my True Classic Black Henley on right now with the buttons. It's time to highlight your best attributes with a t-shirt that you can always confidently throw on. Not only are you getting a t-shirt designed for the male body, but the first thing you'll notice is how soft it is. The colors are prime too. You can even match your team of choice, your Miami Dolphins. There are certainly oranges and blues that you can take advantage of. I don't know if the aqua is there, but there are other colors. And True Classic doesn't just stop at tees. They're also your one-stop shop for men's essentials, from polos and workout shorts with the same flattering fit to boxer briefs designed with a pouch to keep your bulge nice and comfortable. All of their gear is top-notch quality at reasonable prices. And for any of the defense-sized players, they have long body options for the tall guys and up to triple XL on their staple colors. So whether you have abs or flabs, their clothes look great on all body types. Let's stop beer belly shaming with better clothes. Men, let's be team players here. Upgrade your wardrobe with True Classic and help your friends out by telling them about these tees as well. From tall Steve's, active Paul's, or average Greg's, True Classic has your back. It's time you get your fit together. Upgrade your wardrobe with True Classic. Get 25% off at trueclassic.com with the code DolphinsTalk. Free shipping included on purchases over $100. That's 25% off at trueclassic.com with the code DolphinsTalk. If there's one bet you should make this football season, it's on True Classic. True Classic, look good, feel good. So, Brain, obviously we had Teddy Bridgewater in action. We wanted to talk about him and see how he was going to do, but obviously we didn't get to see that. But what we did get to see was the debut of Skylar Thompson. So there were a lot of people this week, Brain, that were banging the table saying that Skylar Thompson is the best quarterback on this roster. Skylar Thompson is the guy who should be playing. Well, Skylar Thompson played. He sure played. He was 19 of 33 for 166 yards. He was responsible for 2 turnovers, 1 fumble, and 1 interception. He did not throw a touchdown pass, although he did make a connection with Raheem Mostert, where Mostert almost got into the end zone, but ended up not even the play was originally called a touchdown. But so we got to see Skylar Thompson, and needless to say, he didn't blow the doors off the place. He didn't wow anybody. I don't think he was bad. I thought he was basically exactly what I would have expected for a 7th round rookie who is thrust into a game without any time to prepare. A guy who had been the 3rd string quarterback, spent maybe a week and a half as the number 2. Not that that makes an appreciable difference at the end of the day. I thought it was a fine debut from Skylar Thompson. I think if we were going to see him again as the starter, I wouldn't be thrilled about it. But, maybe with a bit more time to prepare, a time, as the number 1, that things would be better. But yeah, Skylar Thompson turns out not the savior, Bryn.
Yeah, and that was not terribly surprising. Now, I will say this. I wanted to say, he probably dispelled the notion that he should be the number 2 quarterback on the team, but I don't know that he did, because the only play that we got out of Teddy Bridgewater was him with an intentional grounding out of his own end zone, which is the same thing that happened in the preseason too. So I think there's still going to be a lot of people who believe that Skylar probably should be the number 2 quarterback. What I would say is you've got over 60 starts from Teddy Bridgewater, of him playing, at the very least winning football. He's got a winning record as a starting quarterback in that many starts. That's not insignificant. That, they can, evaluate things in-house. And obviously, look, he hasn't, all signs point to the fact that he didn't have a concussion and he should have never really been taken out of the game anyway. But if it comes down to it and they decide that Skylar Thompson is the guy, okay, I'm good with it. But if they come out and they decide that Teddy Bridgewater is the guy, I'm also good with that, because frankly, the evidence that we have, maybe not overwhelming evidence, but the evidence that we have would lead me to feel more confident in winning a football game with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback than it would Skylar Thompson. I will say this, though, in spite of the 2 turnovers, I saw a lot of good things from Skylar Thompson in that game. And I would say I don't necessarily feel not confident if Skylar Thompson is out there next week with a week to prepare. I'd feel a little bit more confident with Teddy, and I'd feel a lot more confident with Tua. And that's the way I would rank them. That said, if Teddy Bridgewater goes out there now and puts any sort of bad tape out there for like a quarter or 2 and the Dolphins offense is struggling, I can absolutely see in the middle of next week's game, Teddy Bridgewater getting benched just because the offense looks ineffective and it needs a spark. Because at the very least, Skylar Thompson was not a disaster.
That's true.
People are going to look at the numbers and they're going to say, well, there's nothing impressive about the numbers. And that's true. But he did some things with his legs. He made a couple of really nice throws that were very Skylar Thompson. Like, this is who he is. He's sort of in that mold of like a Gardner Minshew, sort of like, think a much, much, much less talented Brett Favre. That he's going to do some things where you're like, no. Yes. Because he's going to do everything textbook wrong, but can still make things happen because he's just he's got that like improvisational ability. He's got a sort of it factor that probably Teddy Bridgewater doesn't really have. So I can see the team galvanizing around that. And if the offense struggles for a quarter or 2 under Teddy, you go to Skylar Thompson as you need that spark off the bench. And I can see him replacing Teddy. I'm not there yet, but I'm saying, in spite of the fact that Skylar Thompson actually didn't play very well in this game, I think he actually made a bigger case for being on the level with Teddy than taking a step back. And I'll also say that even though they don't end up in the box score, 2 deep throws to Tyreek Hill that result in 61 yards of penalties, that's as good as a complete pass.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I was definitely going to put that in there. It's not like this guy was just playing conservative dink and dunk football there. A lot of the passes were short, and that was a lot of clearly, what he had and what he was comfortable doing was a lot of the short stuff, right? Which is why we saw so much of it in this game. But he did take some shots, and they resulted in big penalties, which is good from a Dolphins perspective. Here's something else that I thought was really good about this. I think that Mike McDaniel handled Skylar Thompson brilliantly in this game. I truly, truly do. Dolphins get the ball back. The big example is the end of the first half. The Dolphins get the ball with 2:38 to go. The defense has just given up a big touchdown drive. They're down 12-0. And Dolphins get the ball with 2.5 minutes left. I think 2:38 on the clock. And the feeling is, let's get into the hurry up offense and let's go down and score some points. And McDaniel has done this previously in the season, but he did it again here. And here is where it was really important. He did not implement a hurry up style offense. He purposely had that team go out there and take their time and be slow and methodical and under control. And when you've got a 7th round rookie quarterback thrust into action, that is exactly the right thing to do. You want to, he talks a lot. McDaniel talks a lot about how his job is to put the players in the best position to succeed, right? To give them whatever advantage that he can give them. And I think he realized that putting this rookie quarterback in a position where it's going go, hurry up. You're putting this guy in a position to make mistakes, and you're putting him at a disadvantage. An even bigger disadvantage than already the fact that he's been thrust into the game with zero preparation. So to have McDaniel come out and purposely slow play it, keep it under control, keep it slow, keep the game in front of you, play within yourself, just don't make mistakes. And understand that, listen, this is going to be our possession. There's 2:38 to go. We're either going to score here and go into halftime like that, or we're not going to score here, but we're not going to have you mess this up and give the other team a chance to score. And so it was deliberate. And I think they tried to do that with the play calling as much as they could. And then we saw in the fourth quarter, as they fell behind, they started needing to get a bit more aggressive, and you weren't able to keep it close to the vest anymore. And at that point, things sort of begun to spiral out of control. And then you end up with this lopsided scoreline. But I think the way that McDaniel handled the implementation of Skylar Thompson in this game was good, was smart, and it's one of the things that I feel really confident about Mike McDaniel. And I know that there are a lot of people that got on him in the Twitterverse for attempting that field goal, the 54-yard field goal or whatever it was that Jason Sanders missed at the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Right move.
That was absolutely the right move. I mean, Jason Sanders is a pretty money kicker most of the time.
You're playing him.
Exactly. And most of the time he's going to make that field goal. And you're not, I should have played the field position game. I don't know about that. I think that it was the right move to go there and try to kick that field goal, get the right move. But I thought, it's just one of those things where I'm more confident in Mike McDaniel after that game than I was before, just because I feel like I would have loved to have seen the game plan that he had a week and a half to implement for Teddy Bridgewater. But again, all of that went out the window. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, the Dolphins in the fourth quarter of this game, where they've got their 3rd string quarterback in, they're missing their top 2 cornerbacks, they're missing their top 2 offensive tackles. And yes, they're playing the Jets, but they are in this game with a chance to take the lead. And that, you got to give some credit to the head coach there. You gotta, because he put his players into the best position to succeed, even as his given circumstances changed drastically. So I don't know. I'm still feeling really good about Mike McDaniel, and then hearing his press conference today and hear how he just dismisses the media for some of the stupid questions that they ask him. I really like this head coach. What?
He's turning into Nick Saban.
Except he has not vehemently denied taking a position at a university, only to turn around and take that position the next day.
Yet.
It's early. It's early.
But I agree with you. I like McDaniel. I disagree with you in the way that he handled the end of the first half. I think that he's very lucky that they didn't end up having to settle for a field goal there, because I thought you're on the Jets side of the field. You just picked up a first down. You've got 2 timeouts left, and you don't go into a hurry up and you don't use one of the timeouts. Mostert gets tackled at the 1-yard line, and there was like 5 seconds left, or
yep.
And you now have put yourself into a situation where if you don't score a touchdown on that next play, you, 1, either are out of time and have to kick a field goal, or 2, the clock runs out and you end up with 0 points. You let 30 seconds come off the clock. It didn't end up harming you because you ended up scoring the touchdown. But if you don't end up scoring the touchdown and this game ends up being, decided by less than a touchdown, you're looking at that sequence. And what is the cost there? I know you said, well, he wants to make sure that he's not like rushing, or fine, call a timeout. You're not rushing after a timeout. And, furthermore, so we're worried that that we're going to leave too much time on the clock for the Jets when we're on their side of the field with less than, if we're getting them the ball, they're going to have less than a minute left. That's what we're worried about. We trust our defense. We're a defensive-led team, but we're afraid that if we leave too much time on the clock, Zach Wilson is going to drive right down the field for some huge momentum swinging. No, get the hell out of there with that garbage. That's coaching scared. That was poor clock management that he got away with because we scored a touchdown.
Disagree. The goal was to use all of that time and to end up with a score.
Okay,
because
but what happens? He gets tackled at the 1-yard line, and what happens? What happens if he gets tackled in bounds there?
You call a timeout. They had the timeouts left. When they ran that play on the play they scored the touchdown on, there was 6 seconds on the clock. They ran that play, they scored the touchdown, and it took 2 seconds. If they hadn't gotten into the end zone there, you call timeout. And then you're left with the decision. Do you make the decision to go for the touchdown, or do you make the decision to kick the field goal? But either way, you've controlled that entire situation. The goal was you're going to make this the final possession of the half. And that was the goal. And that was what they did.
It worked out, but that's not. That doesn't make any sense. No, it doesn't make any sense.
I'm telling you that it has worked a couple of times now, and I think it's great. So that's where we are with that. So there it is. I guess there are 2 other things to talk about in this game, and one of them is more of a negative thing. So let's talk about that first, and then we'll end on the positive note. The defense, Brain. I mean, you give up 40 points to the Jets, and I know that a lot of it is the game spiraling out of control late, but it's the sloppy tackling. It's the missed assignments. A lot of that is very concerning, and that is things that I don't know if you can fix. And these are the things that when we were upset that the Dolphins didn't bring in another cornerback, a lot of the argument was, well, what do you do if you're ever down? What does any team do if it's down its top cornerbacks and blah, blah, blah. And that's always the argument. But that you don't have a lot behind Xavier Howard and Byron Jones out there. So, and the Dolphins have not bulked that up. So that's a concern. And because of that, now we were also seeing the fact that maybe this defensive front isn't quite as good as we thought they were, because they're not getting the sacks on their own. We're not doing a whole lot of blitzing. So they're not generating pressure. Emmanuel Ogbah, quiet. We're not generating the kind of consistent pressure. And again, if you look at this, if you look at some of the stats that are sort of underlying all of this, it's it's a little bit concerning. I know I said I wasn't concerned on the episode of Go Time Dolphins that we did. Shout out to our friend Charlie and Kadeem over at Go Time Dolphins. But it's I don't know. It's getting to the point where I am worried about this defense, particularly if we don't get X and Byron Jones back. And it, like I said earlier, it sounds like Byron Jones is not even close at this point.
Yeah, well, and that's the big if. That because this defense is built not to get pressure with their front four. This defense is built to scheme pressures, blitz, trust their corners on the outside so that we can blitz and trust our secondary can throw off the timing of routes, make a whole bunch of mess in the middle of the field and create havoc and create turnovers. If you don't have the corners, the entire defense doesn't work. So you have to change everything that you're doing. And so you have to play a lot more of this soft coverage. You have to rely on your edge guys to get pressure, your defensive line to get pressure without blitzing. But guys like Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis, John Jenkins, Zach Sealer, like those are not pass rushing defensive linemen. Those are defensive linemen that are meant to play gap control to free up space for other players to create pressure, like blitzers, and then their edge rushers on stunts and twists. But when the opposing team is not worried about that, then they can put an extra blocker or slide protection to the side of Jalen Phillips. They can call plays away from that. You're putting a lot on Emmanuel Ogbah and Jalen Phillips. And that's not to say that they don't have to play better, because at the end of the day, Emmanuel Ogbah got paid to be a really good edge rusher. And part of that means, in this scheme, even when you're not blitzing, you still have to find a way to beat your man to create pressure and get the sack. But it's also a lot more difficult to get home and get the sack when there's soft coverage on the outside. It all goes hand in hand. So this defense doesn't really work without those corners. Now, that said, issues like tackling and issues like missed assignments were the issues that had the Dolphins defense playing so poorly the first half of last season. And this is what we talked about when we talked about, to me, the bigger error is not going out and getting a corner, because to be fair, when Trill Williams got hurt, the first thing that they went out and did was they signed Mackenzie Alexander. If you really want to think about it, the Dolphins have lost their top 3 outside corners because Nick Needham is not supposed to be an outside corner. And Mackenzie Alexander was supposed to be your number 3 corner when Trill Williams went out. So we've really lost 4 of our top 5 corners. What Kader Kohu is doing is amazing and has really softened everything, because you got to see a little bit of Noah Igbenogany out there. And if it wasn't for Kader Kohu, you'd be seeing a lot more of Noah Igbenogany, and that would be a problem. But I digress. The bigger issue isn't that we didn't get another corner. The issue is that we didn't bring in an experienced, established defensive coordinator. Because these assignment problems, these sloppy tackling issues, the questionable play calling about changing what you're doing, I understand. Maybe we're not, we're without X and Byron Jones, but maybe you need to still do a better job of mixing some things up and staying true to who you are, and maybe trusting your talent a little bit and making the opposing team beat what you do, because what you're doing right now is not working.
No.
I will say this, though, in their defensively, again, this was a game where they had given up 17 points into the fourth quarter. The Dolphins offensively completely fell apart in the second half of this football game, and that led to a lot of what the Jets were able to accomplish late. But the blown coverages, the big plays, These need to be fixed. The penalties for the
missed
second week in a
tackling,
row,
11
like,
penalties.
yeah,
11
like,
penalties for 102
these
yards
things
on the
need
Miami
to be
Dolphins.
addressed, and they need to be fixed, because those things, like them or not, those things were not happening. The penalties, that stuff was not happening under Brian Flores.
Yeah. So much to be fixed on the defensive side of the ball for the Miami Dolphins. But I did say earlier that we're going to end things on a positive note here. And we are going to do that after I tell you all to go over to manscaped.com and use the promo code Dolphins Talk to save 25% and save 20%, not 20, 25, 20% on manscaped.com. And you'll get the best men's grooming essentials that you've got. You've got the shampoo, you've got the toner, you've got the deodorant, you got the lip balm, you got all the things over there at manscaped.com. Really great products. And if you're the kind of guy that likes to get into the shaving stuff as well, they've got a lot of great products for that as well. So head over to manscaped.com, use the promo code Dolphins Talk, save 20% off your order. You get free shipping anywhere in the world. We have somebody watching from Australia. What up? Fins up, Australia, early in the morning down there. We appreciate you. And make sure that you use the promo code Dolphins Talk. You get that free shipping to anywhere in the world. So 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the promo code Dolphins Talk. So a positive that came out of this game, and there's no denying it, because, I mean, the Jets had to have known it was coming. Dolphins had a running game in this game, and they were able to really establish the run. A total of 26 rushing attempts on 137 yards. And yeah, there was some trickery in there with Tyreek Hill getting a couple of carries. But the key here, Raheem Mostert, 18 carries, 113 yards, averaging 6.3 yards a carry. He also had a touchdown in this game. Mostert also added a reception in this game. It is clear now that Raheem Mostert is the running back one for this Miami Dolphins team. And in fact, after Chase Edmonds dropped another pass, we saw Myles Gaskin get his first little bit of running time in this game. And I wonder if he's maybe threatening to overtake Chase Edmonds as the number 2 running back in this team. But either way, the Dolphins were able to run the ball and run it pretty well. This was something that we thought might be happening soon. And the fact that they were able to do it without Teron Armstead and Austin Jackson is also something that has to be encouraging.
Definitely. We'd seen signs the last couple of weeks. Things were kind of trending in the direction, and you definitely see that Mostert looks to be the better of the backs right now. Just the way that he's running, his comfortability with the system, the way he's hitting the lanes, his explosiveness. There's no doubt who the Dolphins' lead running back is right now. It's definitely Raheem Mostert. And the Dolphins' running game has made great strides. And if there is a silver lining in this game, I would say this could be. We look back at the season and we say, if this ends up being a turning point in the positive, we might actually look at this game and say, well, this was the game where the Dolphins figured out where everything kind of clicked and they actually developed a running game that they can rely on. Now we'll see, it takes more than 1 week for this to really, count as, the Dolphins have found their running game, but this was a good start, and this is going to be necessary because it sounds like, based on McDaniel's words today, it sounds like you're probably going to be without Tua for this next game. So whether you've got Teddy Bridgewater starting or whether you got Skylar Thompson, you're going to need to be able to rely on your running game. Otherwise, you are relying exclusively on Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson. The entire team needs to step up. The defense needs to play better. The special teams needs to play better. You can't leave points out there on the field on special teams. So Jason Sanders as a kicker, he needs to be better. The quarterback play needs to be better. The offensive line and pass protection needs to be better. And the Dolphins running game needs to be better. It needs to be at the very least what it was in this Jets game going forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But again, that was a positive thing. And here's another positive thing that I think is worth saying and saying out loud, because I'm sure there are people that have been thinking it, and I think it's important to say it out loud. I'm going to go full screen here, Brain. You can hide for just a second. Here's what I think. I think that most people that saw the Dolphins making the playoffs this year figured that the Dolphins, after 5 weeks, would be sitting there with a 3-2 record. We didn't get there the way that we thought we were going to get there, but we still got there. We're still sitting here at 3-2. So there's a long way to go in the season. 12 more games remaining. And obviously the Dolphins are facing some adversity here in terms of the fact that they have a pile of injuries. The injuries are mounting, and it's not a great look for them as they are dealing with that, and they're navigating this problem. They are dealing with the firestorm surrounding Tua Tagovailoa, and now Teddy Bridgewater has been dragged into it as well. And that situation is now playing itself out. And let's just all hope that the new protocols that have been implemented are improved upon as we go forward, so that there is some accountability for any of those decisions going forward when a player is removed from the game. But at the end of the day, Dolphins are sitting here at 3-2. Suddenly, this upcoming game against Minnesota looks a little bit more challenging than perhaps it did earlier. And there are a ton of question marks around how the Dolphins are going to look going into that game. Are they going to have Teddy Bridgewater? Are they going to have Skylar Thompson? Are they going to have Xavier Howard? Are they going to have Tyreek Hill? Are we going to have Teron Armstead? These are all questions, and all of them in time will be answered and will inform how the Dolphins are going to perform come next Sunday. But the fact of the matter is, right now, the Dolphins find themselves at 3-2, and plenty of time to get things right. And here's the other thing. 3-2, knowing full well that those 2 games that they lost, they didn't have anywhere near their full complement of players. So that's got to leave you thinking, if we've got everybody available to us, this Dolphins team can hang with everybody. So a long way to go. Let's enjoy the ride. And even though it's a little frustrating right now, maybe, just maybe, things are going to be okay. Brain, how do you feel now?
Agree with every single thing that you just said. That's just a big if at the end of that, though.
It is a big if. But you know what else? And here's the other thing. This is why every time somebody tweeted at us after week 3 to change the name of the podcast, it was always like, please see pinned tweet.
Yes.
Because I'm not saying that these are the same old Dolphins right now, because, long way to go and injuries are what they are. But I mean, it's certainly a same old Dolphins situation to find ourselves in, right? Where the Dolphins start 3-0 and then, find themselves now at 3-2. But I'm not saying these are the same old Dolphins, but I'm also saying this is why we told you not to tweet at us at 3-0 that these were definitely not the same old Dolphins.
I had to drink the Kool-Aid.
This is your fault.
I just got caught up, man. Like,
it's really like
I can't believe that I let them do this to me again. I cannot believe it.
This is what your wife says every year to you. She says this.
They really are like the Real Housewives, though. Like, I mean, remember I went on that my one hot take last year, and I said that they're like the Real Housewives because, like, at the beginning of the year, they're that housewife that's always been toxic in the past, and they convince you, no, I've changed. I started going to therapy. I started practicing Zen. I'm all Zen now. And then 3 or 4 weeks in, 3 or 4 episodes in, some shit goes down, and they're irate and they're toxic again. And you're just like, man, I can't believe I fell for it. They really are the housewives of the league.
There you go. The same old housewives That's I guess what they are, the same old housewives. I do want to, just as a sidebar here. So it was home this past weekend or this past week cleaning out my old childhood bedroom because my parents finally sold their house. Our parents sold their house. So I went digging through some stuff. And if you watch the preview show, we were actually in that house. I went digging through some stuff and I found this old Miami Dolphins trivia game.
Oh my goodness.
So all kinds of good stuff here, all kinds of good trivia questions. And I wonder if I might start doing some, I think it'd be a good idea to start doing some live old school Dolphins trivia. This game has got to be from like 1990 or something like that. So the questions are horribly outdated. For example, who are the Dolphins playing if their game is in Veterans Stadium?
Well, nobody, but
Right.
they would have been the Eagles, right?
That is correct. That's correct. Who is the South Florida businessman who owns the Philadelphia Eagles?
Who was that?
Norman Bremen.
Oh, how do you like that?
So anyway, these are the kinds of questions. It's very outdated stuff, but some of it is not so outdated. Like, for example, what university did Dolphins owner, late former Dolphins owner Joe Robbie attend?
That's the one that you pulled out is not outdated.
Well, I mean,
Literally
the
three-
answer to the question,
Three owners ago.
Well, I'm just saying the question is essentially where did Joe Robbie go to school? And that no matter how much time goes on, the answer to the question is always going to be the same.
But he's not the owner, and
It's true.
And he's been passed away for what, 30 years?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, long time. What was the final score of Super Bowl 21?
Well, that hasn't changed.
Do you know the answer?
That was the one where we got beat by the 49ers?
No, the Dolphins were not in that game.
Oh. Was that like the Redskins and the Broncos or the Giants?
Giants and the Broncos. Pretty good. Pretty close.
It was like a low scoring game, like a 23-7 or something like that.
No, it's 39-20.
Oh, it was not a low scoring game.
No. Anyway, we've got the Dolphins trivia question. So if you think should ask some of those on the show, we could do that going forward here. Dolphins trivia. I threw out the rest of the game. I kept the questions. The rest of the game, it's a plastic football field with Dolphins end zones and little pegs, 2 little pegs that can go in 10-yard increments throughout the field. And every time you get a question right, you get 10 yards. Every time you get a question wrong, you go back. But I only had the field and I didn't have the little guys that go into the field. So I threw out all away, but kept the cards. So we've got the questions. So maybe those can come in handy at some point down the road. But that is going to wrap us up for this episode of the Same Old Dolphins Show. We will be back later this week to preview the Dolphins' encounter with the Minnesota Vikings. We are going to record that show or go live Thursday of this week, I believe is going to be the plan. Hopefully at that point, we will have some indication of who the starting quarterback for the Dolphins would be. My feeling is that it is going to be Teddy Bridgewater. He will have exited the concussion protocols. Our understanding is that he has absolutely not had a concussion, so he's going to clear the concussion protocol. The question is going to be whether or not they feel they can get him ready for the game if he only has one on-field practice on Thursday. That's the thing, because Skylar is going to be QB1 on Tuesday. Skylar will be QB1 at practice on Wednesday. And on Thursday, Teddy Bridgewater could clear the concussion protocol and practice with the team again. So he can get a couple of practices in. I don't know if it's going to work out, but
I think it's going to be a starter reliever kind of situation where I think Teddy gets the call to be the starter, but that it's a relatively short leash. Not like, he makes one bad pass and he's out, but that they're not going to be afraid to put Skylar in, especially if Skylar's getting first team reps on Wednesday and there's any sort of doubt, then both guys are really going to prepare as the starter. I really think it's going to be that type of situation.
Well, we're going to find out. We're going to talk more in depth about that later this week here on the show. But thanks again to everybody who's listening, who's following us on Twitter at Amplified to Rock, at Aaron the Brain, at Same Old Dolphins. Download, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Smash that like button. Smash it. And make sure that you are visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. We appreciate it very much indeed. So, Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will talk to you again next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Go Dolphins!
Can I regurgitate the Kool-Aid?